Good afternoon. Thanks for your patience. My name is Mike Dietz. I'm the planning supervisor for housing, and I'm here to introduce Jim Miller. He's the assistant chief with California DOF in the demographic research unit. Jim, I'll let you introduce yourself in just a minute. But first, a few housekeeping items. As everyone likely knows, this is a hybrid meeting, so we've got folks online and here in person. That being the case, we're going to ask that everyone online please stay muted and use the raise your hand function or use the chat if you want to ask questions, leave a comment, participate. We will be monitoring the chat, but just to avoid chaos, please stay muted when you're not actively talking. For folks here in the room with us, you have a microphone in front of you. You actually do need to use the microphone when you ask questions or leave comments, things like that, or else folks online won't be able to hear you. So please, right in front of you, there's a push to speak button. You don't need to try it out right now, but please hit the push to speak button when you're ready to talk. And again, we will call on folks online to help leave things a little organized, hopefully. For everyone here in the room, and I guess in the breakout rooms online, this roundtable is getting to know the Department of Finance Demographic Research Unit's Data Hub. If you're looking for one of the other sessions, it'll either be next door or down the hall in the Regional Council room. So hopefully everyone here is for the right session. We're going to do our best to try and give equal precedence to folks online and here in person, but bear with us. The hybrids are always a little tricky. And let's see. Oh, and if folks who are here in person could please make sure that your microphone is muted as well. If you see a red light, that means it's on, so please make sure you're muted as well. I think that's pretty much all we've got. So, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session with the longest title, I think, looking at the signs outside. Well, yeah, as Michael has said, I'm Jim Miller. I'm a research data manager in the demographic research unit at the Department of Finance and the assistant chief in the unit. Before that, I was the operations project manager at the California Complete Count Census 2020. Worked with a lot of folks in the SCAG region as part of that and continue to do so at the DRU. And thank you to SCAG for inviting me to talk about the Data Hub today. Real excited to talk about it. Wish some of my colleagues who've made apps and other visualizations and other content on the hub could be here as well, because a lot of work has gone into it, and I hope it, and I look forward to talking more about it. Just a little bit about the DRU. We are the kind of the single source of demographic data for or the official source of demographic data for state planning and budgeting. We work with other state agencies and partners, local governments around the state, the public, the media, and many others on various demographic issues. In spring of 2018, the state began to allocate resources to increase self-response to the 2020 census. As part of that effort, the state acquired a pretty robust platform known as ArcGIS Online. This is cloud-based mapping and data software that's created by Esri over in Redlands. And the platform was used to help support state and community efforts to increase participation in Census 2020. Around the same time, DRU had contracted with the RAND Corp to do California Neighborhoods Count. This was a survey of about 23,000 households to collect. Shorthand was almost a parallel census that we could use to evaluate how Census 2020 went, and also for our own estimates and projections. the ArcGIS platform was part of that as well. The Census Office sunset in mid-2021, and the state extended the ArcGIS Online infrastructure on over to the Department of Finance, Demographic Research Unit, and the D-Hub was born. And so the goal of the D-Hub since then, or Data Hub, is we want to provide additional ways to present DRU work. We have, you've probably seen on our forecasting page on our website, we have a lot of tabular data and spreadsheets for download and CSV files and so on. A lot of that now can be visualized in the D-Hub, and much of it as interactive visualizations. And we want to, one of those goals is to make our data easier to use, more accessible to different audiences. And so today, kind of give a overview of what we have and how it could be used, and maybe even get some ideas, because we're always looking for ideas too on what sort of information up on the D-Hub would be helpful. So generally speaking, the content on the Data Hub falls within about 4 broad categories. There's the estimates and projections that the DRU produces. These are the July 1 and January 1 population estimates that we generate. We do enrollment projections. And then we also do the population projections, which actually just came out this week, and I'll show a visualization that we've done on that. There's also content on the D-Hub that is more subject matter specific, things like group quarters, wildfire losses, and so on. In addition, there are visualizations that deal with U.S. Census Bureau data, taking data that's available on their website or summary file or via API and visualizing it, doing the crunching behind the scenes and then visualizing it to hopefully make it more useful and helpful for people. And then finally, we also have a number of research and reports available on the D-Hub. And we also have most of this content available on our website, but by having it on the D-Hub, there's a single, when a user searches for information on a particular topic, those reports will show up as well. So I will now, I could go to the website of the D-Hub. So just a kind of a quick overview of navigation on this. You have the items across the top. It would take you, information about the DRU, reports, some of the different projects we've done. I'll talk a little more about those later. You have a gallery. Oops. Let's see. My mouse might be we have a gallery where we also provide a number of our apps that are available. There are also the census icon, or the various icons right here, such as census data, demographics, estimates, that you can click on and go that and get content that way. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. That's the gallery there. Okay. Sure. Yeah, so this was the gallery where a lot of our content is put right there on the page. Here are the different icons that I mentioned on particular subject matters. And then definitely the search bar. If there's a particular thing like housing, population, um, language access, you can search for content that way. So I was going to go through, give an overview or give demos of a few of the apps and other content that we have here. And I will start with our new population projections. Walter talked about this morning during this morning sessions. This is our baseline 2023 series that was posted yesterday. And this is a app that allows one to select a county or statewide and get a population overview and the components of change, births, deaths, net migration, and then the net change in the population. And in addition, there's an let's see if I can get all that to show. Showing how the more granular data in the projections. So presenting that data by age, youth, prime working age, seniors 65 and over, as well as showing the median age, and then showing a map. And what you can do here is go by 5-year intervals and see the change in all of these categories. Say, looking at the map in the lower right-hand corner, you can see that the median age across California, or in many parts of California, increases during the projection period. And finally, included in this app is the projected population of race and ethnic groups. Again, this is the California level of statistics, but if we went down to, say, Los Angeles County, you see year by year in the projected population by race and Hispanic Latino populations, as well as a couple charts here on the right that show what the projected was for 2020 and what it would be for 2070. And you can do this for any county in the state. And then you click this to get home. And another app I wanted to show, this is an application that visualizes our January 1 population estimates. These come out in May of each year. Let's go down to LA County. So this is LA County, and it goes from 2020, which is the baseline, the 2020 census, on up through January 1 of 2024. And you get information about the total housing units, the population data, the percentage change in the population. And then also, if you see this button right here, ADU, ADUs get counted as single family housing in the estimates process, but we pull them out here because there's a lot of interest in ADUs these days, and we want to make that information available. If you go to another, let's go to San Francisco County. And a lot of ADUs there as well. Los Angeles and San Francisco have had the bulk of the ADU construction in the state. Another projection visualization we have up here is our school enrollment projections. These come out each fall at the statewide and county level. And what this visualization does is it presents that information in two different tabs at the state and county level. And you can select one more counties. With the projections going out to the current series goes out to 2032. And then we also, in response to interest from districts around the state, some projection scenarios for the larger districts. These are roughly 500 districts that represent about 90% of enrollment in California. And our methodology for the 2023 series controls their enrollment to our projected county enrollment and comes up with 3 projection scenarios. And we're going to be having our 2024 series released later this fall. And we'll be providing that same type of information with updated data from the California Department of Education, as well as our own state and county level projections. Come December, we will have a visualization up for our July 1, 2024 population estimates. So watch for that. The second category of visualizations available on the DHub are more subject matter specific, not really, not directly population and housing related, but they do have connections. One of those is the California wildfire housing loss to wildfire application. And this visualizes 10 years worth of housing that was destroyed by wildfire. This is data that is collected by CAL FIRE and other agencies. And my colleague, Jordan, pulled all this in and visualized it. And you can get, as you zoom around the map, the charts update. And each of those points on the map is a structure that was destroyed by a wildfire. And then there are some overall statistics on, of course, the Butte County having significant fire losses from the Camp Fire in 2018. But there's information for every county in the state. Another one I want to show, and I'll get to it from this tab across the top, is the census tract crosswalk. And this is, gets into maybe a little bit of the nitty gritty of how the census does its work. But between the 2010 census and the 2020 census, thousands of census tracts changed. Their boundaries changed. It's, I think, in the neighborhood of about 5,100 tracts in 2020 differed in some way from the 2010 tracts. And it used to be the Census Bureau would release relationship files, that there would be a way to tie the two different geographies together. They didn't do that for 2020. And so how do you get the question we got and thought of internally was, how do you get 2020 population and housing statistics into 2010 tracts? And the DRU, my colleagues, Fen and Jonathan, came up with a methodology that uses building footprint data and residential parcels at the 2020 census block level to allocate population and housing units, and then reassigning the information for the 9,129 2020 tracts into the 8,057 2010 tracts. And this kind of visualization, I think, can be useful if you're a local government or somebody who's interested in a particular area and looking at how it changed from 2010 to 2020. Okay. And then the other one, another one I wanted to show here. College and university group quarters. As part of the process of calculating estimates, the DRU needs to know or have a good idea of who's in group quarters. In group quarters, it's maybe one of those things that may seem a little obscure, but it's basically anyone who's not in a household. And so these are like nursing homes, jails, prisons, military bases, and college and university dorms. And so part of our work process at DRU is we continually survey colleges and universities to find out A, where their dorms are, and B, what is the population of that, so that we can then fold those into our estimates process and projections process as well. And what this app provides is a way that it presents that information as a map that we get back from those institutions. And it's a way for anyone to go here and basically truth test if it looks right to them. If there's a university out there that is looking at this and they think something is off, they can reach out to us and correct it. And without this visualization, they may not know to do that. So that was the goal of making this app. And like I was saying, we encourage feedback and engagement to keep improving this data set. And as we get suggestions, we visualize those as well. So the goal is to have this be the latest and greatest visualization of what we think is out there in terms of group quarters operated by colleges and universities. The next category of data I'd like to show is how this takes data from the Census Bureau. And I'm sure many, if not all of you in this room, have worked with Census Bureau data. There's just millions of gigabytes of it available. And some of it, a lot of it, maybe not in the most readily digestible format, and often in tabular format where the information may not jump out at you. So the DHub includes a number of visualizations that are built off of Census Bureau data. This is one, my population density using ACS data in California. And as you zoom in, it flips over from county to tract to block group and the number of people per square mile. And I like this app because it offers different types of geography. You got, like I mentioned, county, tract, and block group. You got MSAs and metropolitan statistical areas in place. You can do it by school districts and zip code tabulation areas. So there's a lot of ways to, if for anyone who wants to dig more into population density, I think they should definitely check out this app.
Jim, if I could interject with a question here. I know Well, I think all of us probably, like you said, have had to work with census data at some point, some capacity. And to me, this is kind of amazing because it's just so much better than what we had even a few years ago, as far as I'm aware. Like even I was in grad school 10 years ago, and I remember trying to sort through all the data. Can you speak a little bit about how you've seen data evolve, data like this, especially where it's easier to visualize for people who are readily using it?
That's a good question. I mean, it really has. I mean, it's, uh, I think that the data from the Bureau, I mean, when I was first started working for it, like you had to download the huge, I mean, there was, what was it, Ferret, American Ferret or something was their first, and then American Fact Finder, and now data.census.gov. And the, and the API that the Bureau makes available, I think has really made it a lot quicker and less. It's still challenging. I don't want to, it's definitely challenging to work, can be challenging to work with census data because really before we do these kinds of visualizations, there's a lot of pre-processing to, get the percentages we want to calculate rates or to do sums. But with, the software is better now, I think. I mean, you can do more than 65,000 rows in Excel and, and the different scripting languages out there make it more doable. But it's, I know on the, here and there are complaints about, Census Bureau data and how it's available, but I think it's gotten a lot more accessible in the last 10 years. That's the time I've been working with it. Two other things I wanted to, couple other apps I wanted to show that we do have on the, in the gallery with specific to census data, like the census tracts I mentioned earlier, the public use microdata areas, PUMAs. They changed after the 2010 or after the 2020 census as well. So there's an app here that shows that. In addition, the urban area definitions. This was something that the Bureau, I think it was maybe in late 2021 or early 22, changed the definition of what made up a urban area. So you can see here, these are this is urban areas around Fresno. And these are the 2020 definition. So those areas, that are kind of different from the red, which is the 2010 definition, things have changed in terms of how the Bureau defines what an urban area is. So we think that we made this, or my colleague Jonathan made this application to assist with local government and community organizations and others who do work in urban areas and would find this information useful. Another app that we made working with census data responds to a lot of the questions we get in the DRU about language access. It was a big issue as well during the 2020 census effort by California. And so we have a couple applications in the gallery dealing with language access. I'll show this one in a moment, but language microdata for California, another app leading non-English languages. But looking at this application, this is working with PUMS data, which is part of the ACS, but is not a ready-made table like most of ACS data is. The advantage is it has much more granular language data than the ready-made tables in the ACS. There's about 130 different languages, but as anyone in here who's worked with PUMS data knows, it's kind of difficult to interpret. So we made this application here to visualize this more granular language data, both by geography. So Los Angeles here. And so if you select a geographic area, I'll go into the weeds here for 30 seconds. Basically, this is aggregating pumas up to the county level. In some cases, out in rural California, a puma is bigger than one county, so you have multiple counties in one puma. But in places like Los Angeles County, San Diego, Riverside, and I think about 30 other counties in California, they're big enough where you can aggregate the pumas up to the county level. And we break down the leading non-English languages spoken by the limited English proficient population. So in Los Angeles County, about a quarter of the percentage, excuse me, a quarter of the 5 and over population is LEP, and of those, Spanish, 2/3 of them speak Spanish, and then followed by Chinese, Korean, Armenian, Mandarin, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and so on. And then over here on the right, we have the statewide LEP statistics. Statewide, it's about 17% of the 5 and over population is limited English proficient, and the areas of the state the most is LA County, Orange, Riverside, so on, and then these are the counties with their LEP statistics. We also make the same, we kind of flip it around and make the information available about specific languages. So if you're a community group or an area of the state that primarily serves a particular population, you can, a population that speaks a particular language, you can get statistics just on that. So if we look, say at Punjabi, oops. It gives you statistics about where that language is spoken. It's about a little over 62,000 people who are LEP speak that language statewide, about 1% of the population. And then it shows in what San Joaquin County has the highest percentage of their LEP who speak Punjabi, followed by Sacramento, Fresno, Sutter, Yuba counties. And then this last tab, kind of during the 2020 census effort, there was a language access plan that had some methodology to determine what languages needed to be supported in particular areas. That tab, this sheet applies that same methodology to the latest PUMS data.
Jim,
that's kind of for demonstration purposes.
Yeah, when it comes to mapping out limited English proficiency and where those populations are located, how difficult is it? I don't know if you can speak to this, but how difficult is it to map out what's a language versus a dialect? Like I see we have Chinese, but then we've also got Mandarin and Cantonese. I'm certainly no linguist, but I would think there's some overlap there, and then there's also other Chinese dialects grouped in there.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's a good question. I mean, those were languages, in the census data, and the Bureau, I know, goes through a process of determining what respondents can put down in terms of their language and how they then get categorized in the PUMS data. So we treated those as standalone languages. But I mean, going back to the Census 2020 effort, we had a number of my colleagues. I had a number of conversations with groups that asked why a language they spoke or knew people who spoke it was not reflected in the census data. And I mean, I've seen statistics that say, 200 non-English languages are spoken in California. The census data has about 130. The PUMS, I don't know of any other source of data that is available to show by geography that has that level of detail. And in the ACS tables, and the tables you find from the Bureau, they top out around 15 languages or language groups. So long way of answering your question, but yeah, language is one of those things, I think data gets you part of the way there, or data is a place to start, and then beginning, talk to those communities.
That's helpful. Thank you. We also have a question online here. For the population projection tool, can it drill down to the city level, or how granular can you get if you want?
That's a good question. We do not project at a below county level. I mean, we do estimates, January 1 estimates, or at the city level and unincorporated areas, but we don't project. You guys talk to him. We could have I mean, we're always willing to have conversations, and if people have ideas or want to bounce things off of us of what we thought of it, we could provide our or rather my colleague Andres, who's I think one or two rooms over, who is worked on the projections extensively, could offer his expertise.
If I can go back a couple of things, you showed the group quarters data before.
Yeah.
Do you coordinate reporting that data to the Census Bureau? I'm just saying about, we worked with cities who, like Caltech was missed in the census, and that's costing the state somewhere around $20 million over the course of the decade. And I don't know if you're sending that data straight to the Bureau, getting ready for 2030, or is it more something we could use as a resource when we file to challenge the census numbers and say you missed it, here's the DRU showing that it's there?
We provide group quarter information to the Bureau for their estimates process. And before 2020, I think we, gave them a list of what we think these are group quarters, but then the Bureau does its own thing. And in 2020, the group quarters, particularly with universities and colleges, was totally scrambled because of COVID and everybody going home from campus. And so,
I just because we came across this, and the Bureau is much more likely to believe a city if we say, hey, the DRU has documented this is here, than if it's just the city saying, hey, you missed us, count us, because every city says they're undercounted, right?
There was the group quarters review, or to challenge some of the group quarters numbers. I mean, I think we participated in some of those. I think we submitted on behalf of, there were a couple reviews. We participated on behalf of some jurisdictions, as well as some jurisdictions submitting their own filings to the Bureau to get things corrected. But yeah, during 2020 census, particularly the higher education facilities, things kind of went awry for understandable reasons. And then the fourth category I would like to show of the content on the D-Hub deals with reports. And these aren't, they're not interactive. They're not a map, but it's kind of a one-stop shop of a lot of the research that my colleagues have done, as well as various reports that we've been involved with dealing with demographic subjects. This is FEN worked with the Government Operations Agency for California on building footprints and making the file from, I believe it's Microsoft, more usable for small area estimates. This is, going to data we have on our website. Spatial patterns and determinants of inter-county migration was a research paper by my colleague Anchi Zhu, and all about showing that LA and San Francisco Bay Area represent the main origins and destinations for people migrating within California. She worked with driver license address change data from the DMV to do that research. And then finally, piggybacking on what Sanjita was talking about this morning, this platform is the home of the Interactive Finance Bulletin, and there's a lot of economic data that we present monthly, and it's interactive, and instead of just one for years, for decades, the Finance Bulletin was a PDF report and with maybe one chart or two. And now the Finance Bulletin has multiple charts of economic data as well as different revenue and budget data on there.
Jim, we've got a couple more questions online. One is, does the DRU do forward projections on the GQs?
We don't. Okay. We don't. We kind of hold those static. They're not. They're in a different category from the non-GQ population. I mean, no one's gonna in a prison say it's all. There's not the same cohort components of people aging out of prison. It's always going to be that population. So we hold those static.
That makes sense. Another question, can you use the data hub to estimate population for a custom boundary? So rather than city limits or county or something, custom boundary?
To estimate or project?
It says estimate, but I think both would be interesting.
We do custom estimates for, I know we've done them for library districts and community service districts of some types. Yeah, so we do that. They should reach out to us. But we don't project. So I mean, I'll stop there for more questions we can discuss, but I mean, there's more to come. And yes, sir. Yeah. So this is the homepage, and it's down here at the bottom of the gallery, California Public School Enrollment. But yeah, there's more to come. And like I was saying at the start, ideas are welcome. And, we're thinking of things too. And the D-Hub does include Esri's hub environment, which potentially allows setting up subject-specific communities within it, like state data centers, for example. And that's something we've been thinking about as well. But like I said, we get some of our best inspiration from others. Yes. For school enrollment, it's public school enrollment.
I'm so sorry. Please go ahead and use the mics in the room so Zoom can hear the questions.
Oh, yeah. The question was, does DOF do the private school enrollment estimate and the projections? The answer is
We don't do private school. I mean,
private, no.
within, I mean, it's based off of CDE data. You know, there's charter schools are reflected, public charter schools are reflected in the CDE data. And I am fairly certain, wish I, my enrollment expert would know for sure, and I can follow up with you. We may use private school enrollment in our population projections because we do use estimated school-aged children to come up with our overall population projection. But in terms of projecting school enrollment, private school enrollment 10 years out, no.
Thank you.
We have time for a couple more questions, I think. One question online is it possible to download the raw data that all these maps are made with?
For some, I think the download function is there. I guess I'd say, is there, if there's a particular app or map that somebody would like to download from to reach out to me, and I can try to facilitate that.
Okay, good. And I think there's a question at the back.
Jim, just a quick question on the economic data that you kind of showed. Do you have plans to kind of put those data into the data hub? And I guess some of the EDD data would be helpful to be included in there too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can get to the finance bulletin either through the D Hub or from the Department of Finance website. So, I mean, that's out there right now. In terms of EDD data, no plans at this time. Is there a particular flavor of EDD data?
Because
You
that's
think?
kind of one of those things that we do, right? When we look at economic data right off the bat, employment data is what we look for, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, so right now I think we have we have unemployment data here. So this has both US and California unemployment data going back to 2012.
Do you have data showing folks who live in Mexico but commute across the border for jobs?
We don't.
Okay.
That would be really interesting. Have you heard of
I know
potential
Sandag did a
source?
survey a few years ago, but in the, for border crossing, they have trips by mode of crossing, but not necessarily by the purpose of the crossing or trip, at least I found so far.
We don't.
Okay.
I mean, it's known that Imperial County, because of some of the cross-border traffic and, the American Community Survey estimates, a lot of the data that it sometimes raises eyebrows because of that cross-border activity that there isn't a ready source of data for. We could find that would be interesting to show or to present in the D Hub.
Just also,
Sure.
I know you have the homes lost to wildfires. Do you have other disaster, loss of homes?
We don't. It's currently just wildfire. And one other thing I want to mention real quick, I mean, this was born out of the 2020 census. There is data on here about the 2020 census. There's maps of self-response rates. A part of that effort was the California Hard to Count Index, which the DRU developed, and we continue to update. And this app does include a lot about each census tract. Kind of, it's a way to learn about an area. It's the hard to count index is 14 variables from the American Community Survey, and then we come up with a score for each tract to determine how likely it was to respond to the 2020 census. It's since been used for other purposes, just to get an idea of how likely an area would be to participate in, to be responsive to a government policy or something. But one of the, so it does include ACS statistics on poverty and vacant housing and limited English proficient households and so on. And then just by way of the methodology of calculating it, it provides the top 3 characteristics of why an area likely would be hard to count in a census or other similar type of activity. But for different entities that may be involved in either looking at what happened during the 2020 census or maybe planning for the 2030 census, some of the visualizations on the DHub might help with that.
Okay, I think that's about all the time we have. I know we got started a little late, so appreciate everyone sticking with us and all the good questions. Looks like I'm supposed to advise everyone to please take the participant survey when you have a moment. It's in your email. It's also in the program that you received if you're here in person. So if you could please take the survey when you have a chance, we'd appreciate that. And thank you, Jim. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot.